Cover-up or conspiracy? It's SkyWatchTV for Thursday, May 18th, 2017. I'm Derek Gilbert. First up, the mayor of Washington, D.C. says allegations of a cover-up in the investigation of the murder of Seth Rich are preposterous. Rich was a Democratic National Committee staffer who was killed last July in Washington in what the Metropolitan Police Department there says was a botched robbery attempt, even though his iPhone, watch, and wallet were still on him when he was found by police. And like so many other murders in Washington, D.C., this is still unsolved. Rod Wheeler, a former D.C. homicide detective and Fox News contributor, made the allegations of a cover-up in an interview with Fox 5 television there the other night. Wheeler says a source in the Metropolitan PD told him that the police were told to stand down and that no information about the investigation would be forthcoming. Now, Fox News nationally reported Monday that Seth Rich had shared more than 44,000 emails from the Democratic National Committee showing their plan to sabotage the presidential campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders with WikiLeaks in the months leading up to his death. We now know, thanks to some investigative work by the Paul News Network, that's /POL/News Network, that Seth Rich was in fact alive and awake when he was found by Metropolitan PD. The incident report shows that police were wearing body cameras as well when they found Mr. Rich. The question is, did he say anything, and if so, what, before he was transported to hospital where he later died of his gunshot wounds? Now, the major media is, of course, dismissing the story and the allegations of a cover-up as conservative conspiracy theory. Nothing to it, nothing to see here, move along, citizen, even though it keeps beating the Trump is a Russian agent drum, in spite of the testimony of former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, President Obama's Director of National Intelligence, who I assume was in a position to know that there is no evidence, he had seen no evidence of collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. But there must be something there because he's being nice to the Russians. Well, Professor of Russian Studies at Princeton and NYU, Stephen Cohen, told Tucker Carlson on Fox News the other night that the greatest threat to national security we face is this attempt to hamstring President Trump. He said, let's be clear, what they are accusing him of is treason. This has never happened in the United States, that we had a Russian agent in the White House. And then he pointed out that last year, and you might remember we reported on this, the Obama administration worked out a deal with the Kremlin to cooperate in Syria, to share intelligence in the fight against the Islamic State. And then a few days after the agreement was reached, U.S. jets accidentally bombed a Syrian army position near the city of Deir ez-Zor, killing some 60 soldiers and putting an end to that agreement. So it's fair to ask the question, who exactly is making foreign policy in Washington, D.C. these days? And why does the deep state want war with Russia? Now, as we told you yesterday, the New York Times reported Tuesday evening that President Donald Trump had a private conversation with former FBI Director James Comey on February 14th, day after former National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn resigned. During this conversation, Trump allegedly told Comey that he'd hoped that Comey would let go of the investigation into Flynn. Now, I remind you also that this information came to the New York Times from an anonymous source who read the memo that Comey had written. The Times has not actually seen this memo. If there is anything that justifies President Trump's firing of former Director Comey, it is this: leaking this information to the New York Times with the specific intent of causing the president maximum political damage. Now, the thing is, even though Democrats and some Republicans are saying, oh, this is grounds for impeachment, there is no quid pro quo in this offer. The president had already told former Director Comey that he wanted to keep him on as director of the FBI. He didn't offer him anything as a reward for letting go of the investigation. In other words, he didn't say, if you drop this, I will give you none of that. But that doesn't stop the anti-Trumpers, the never-Trumpers, the deep state. They're going to continue throwing stuff at the wall, as I said yesterday, until they find something that sticks. In other news, hacking groups have repurposed a second classified cyber weapon stolen from the U.S. National Security Agency, and are making it available on the deep web. That's the part of the internet that you and I don't, or at least should not, access. At least a dozen other NSA tools are currently being discussed and worked on as the basis of potential new cyber weapons on hacking forums on the dark web. Chart behind you showing the number of new computers being infected per hour, according to security firms that are tracking these infections around the world. The hacking tool developed by the US NSA, called a Steam Audit, has been adapted, is now available for use, according to security analysts. And as with the NSA's Eternal Blue tool, which was the basis for the WannaCry malware that was released and caused this problem, a Steam Audit exploits a vulnerability in older versions of Microsoft's Windows operating system. Please, if you run Windows 7 or Windows 8 on any of your machines, download the free security patch from Microsoft and update your system. This new hack, by the way, exploits the way networked machines talk to one another. We'd like to talk to you on any kind of machine that you operate. The website, SkyWatchTV.com. You'll find information there to find us on Roku, Apple TV, and of course the new mobile app, which is for Android, iOS, and Windows phones. Windows 7 and Windows 8 versions of the operating system only for the Windows phones. You'll find all of that information at SkyWatchTV.com. Just look in the top menu bar there, which is where the red arrow is pointing. You'll find all of my stuff online, including the new video series based on the book, The Great Inception, up to part 18 now, posted at my website, DerekPGilbert.com. And we thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.
I was hired by the government of Sardar to dig up the skeletons of giants. We always carried the bones and the artifacts we found into the church.
So they would make the skeletons disappear. And the church was always involved because they didn't want people talking.
So we asked the priest, what are we supposed to do with the skeleton? And he said, break it into pieces and bury it under the foundation of the house.
I personally excavated 2 skeletons that were more than 10 feet tall.
What happened with the Anasazi? A portal opened, a doorway, and the giants came up out of the earth.
It's almost like they were eaten on the run. This was the violent overthrow of the Anasazi.
Tens of thousands of artifacts were carted off to the Smithsonian's repositories, including the bones of the giants.
At the turn of the 19th century, bodies of giants were turning up all over the United States. All over the island of Sardinia, there are massive stone sepulchres famed since time immemorial as tombs of the giants. Everywhere the megalithic towers stood, the tombs of the giants were close by. There may be tens of thousands of giants still buried in the soils of Sardinia today.
giants are going to return to the earth, are going to rise from the dead.
There is a multi-billion-dollar black market for extractable DNA from the tissue and the bones of dead giants. The stage is now set for mankind to bring about the reemergence of the Rephaim. The enemies of God are about to become the architects of their own divine judgment.
Were still on him when he was found by police. And like so many other murders in Washington, D.C., this is still unsolved. Rod Wheeler, a former D.C. homicide detective and Fox News contributor, made the allegations of a cover-up in an interview with Fox 5 television there the other night. Allegations of a cover-up in the investigation of the murder of Seth Rich are preposterous. Rich was a Democratic National Committee staffer who was killed last July in Washington in what the Metropolitan Police Department there says was a botched robbery attempt, even though his iPhone, watch, and wallet. Cover-up or conspiracy? It's SkyWatch TV for Thursday, May 18th, 2017. I'm Derek Gilbert. First up, the mayor of Washington, D.C. says Wheeler says a source in the Metropolitan PD told him that the police were told to stand down and that no information about the investigation would be forthcoming. Now, Fox News nationally reported Monday that Seth Rich had shared more than 44,000 emails from the Democratic National Committee showing their plan to sabotage the presidential campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders with WikiLeaks in the months leading up to his death. We now know, thanks to some investigative work by the Paul News Network, that's /PO